for that moment to happen like that quick, man, it was like an eye-opening experience, not only for Tank, but really for the rest of the world, like athletes all around, So,
right.
It's a blessing, to have a brother like this. And, now I know he's going to tell his story, and it's going to, I feel like God put his toughest soldiers through his toughest battle so we can, be better equipped for what we're going to go through, but more importantly, what other people need to hear.
That's Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud on the $1 million worth of game show with Gilly the King, a rapper, and social media influencer and disruptor, Wallow. It was an interesting conversation. We've talked a lot about many different conversations had on that show about whose career you'd rather have between Eli Manning and Aaron Rodgers. Maybe some subtle shots were taken at Aaron Rodgers as a teammate. Maybe a bit crazy to say that Stafford is better than Aaron Rodgers. Whatever the case, they discussed a lot, and something we haven't touched on yet has been what Tank Dell went through in Sanford, Florida earlier this offseason. He's visiting family. He goes to a place that I'm not sure knows what it is. It's called Cabana Live. Part of it is billed as like a family-friendly atmosphere. It's a bar with a pool, but it's also billed as a bar to watch sporting events. There was a private event there, and in case you missed it, Tank Dell was in the absolute wrong place at the wrong time, caught on video. A kerfuffle, a brouhaha broke out. Dell was standing in between two parties who pulled out guns, started shooting at each other. I believe 9 total people ended up getting shot incidentally, including Dell. No deaths, thankfully, in it. But it's one of those moments that you see and you're like, holy crap. I mean, Dell could have died, among many others in that spot. So on the $1 million worth of game show, they touched on that. And it's a conversation that for the guys hosting the show hits close to home. For those who don't know, Gilly the King used to go by Gilly the Kid. And in 2006, he got shot. Worse, less than a year ago, I think we're close to the anniversary of it, he lost his son in a shooting. So this is a conversation that not many people can probably have where they've actually been through this. But Dell has been through this. And Gilly had been through this as well. So interesting perspective. They talked about a lot of different things. I thought most noteworthy, though, as you heard coming into this segment, C.J. Stroud was talking about it more than Tank Dell was. And I don't know if that's Stroud being the leader or feeling the need to protect his teammate, who he's clearly very close with. But there were times during this conversation where I thought to myself, even though Stroud has been through a lot as a young man, obviously his father has been in jail since he was a teenager, I felt it was strange that he was touching on it as much as he did. But big picture-wise, in this conversation that the four had with Tank Dell, Gilly the King, Wallow, and Stroud, they did say some very interesting things just about the perspective of an athlete who has grown up with certain people, and then all of a sudden you make it, you leave that neighborhood, but people want you to come back and still hang out with them. Here he is talking about not the perspective of the people who have left and want to come back, but maybe are a little bit wary about it. The perspective of the people that actually, like, you leave in the community who still want to be a part of your life.
When you go home, the cats you seeing, or like people watching this, like, my homeboys watch this, they're going to be like, dang, I was on $1 million worth game. Like, they're going to see it, and like, And my thing, my opportunity to say this to them is like, man, it's y'all opportunity. I mean, it's y'all responsibility too.
Put some
like
protection on.
You know what I'm saying? Like y'all proud of us, you know, and like we the ones that made it out, quote unquote, you know. But like, it's not just about like us, you know what I'm saying? Like we know we need to be careful, but like at the same time, I feel like those watching this, like really our culture, like we need to start putting
culture, protection on the people that make it out.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And then like just hope. Like I think like something like that we bring that, you know, that to our neighborhoods, like where we come from, is hope and inspiration. And that stuff is priceless, but it means the world. Right. And it's not like to all those, like, even like for the haters that don't like love to see what we doing, like it's not about me and you, whatever, like you mad at me
it's
for.
It's about the kids.
I thought it was an interesting perspective. Basically, Stroud saying here, hey, the people that we grew up with, they got to know better than to invite us to places where things might get dicey. And again, I don't know if Tank Dell was supposed to have known what was going to happen at this party that he went to. There were security guards outside. There was a metal detector. Some people were turned away at the door for having guns. But I mean, you go into a club, do you think the people at the door are going to tell you, hey, by the way, multiple people have tried to come in here with guns? They're not going to do that. They don't want you to feel concerned about where you go, Sean.
Hey, you're an NFL player. Have you thought about getting out of here?
Right, exactly.
We're going to be the first business in history to turn down an NFL player.
And on top of that, I mean, look, Tank Dell does not look like an NFL player.
That too. That's certainly part of it, is that he can blend in more than others.
Right. So, I mean, if it's C.J. Stroud walking in, maybe there would be somebody at the door saying, hey, man, this is a lot like Roadhouse, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, because it's in Florida.
The Gyllenhaal one. We got a couple McGregors coming through.
They're strutting around in here, exactly. So, but I do think that it's an interesting perspective, and I think for some it's going to seem out of touch and perhaps a little bit elitist on Stroud's end. But no, I think it's fair. I think for a lot of people to go from just being one of the guys to making it big, like there's got to be some feelings of isolation, loneliness, etc. And then you want to come back and you want to hang out with these friends, but they want to go to the same places that you went to growing up. And you're saying, hey, no, let's go somewhere better.
Yeah, or like, I would love the nostalgia, but yeah, again, these could be some rough areas, and there's a little bit of, you kind of need everyone to be on board with, hey, listen, we can't be doing it how we used to do it.
Exactly. And Stroud expanded on that as this conversation with the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast continued.
Okay, we'll come home, but it's like we were talking about earlier, like it gotta be some like rules and guidelines to this. You know what I mean? Like, or like don't make fun of me when I'm not. Right. Because like when you end up like, oh man, I know probably Tank is like that now after this situation, and like by the glory of God, I'm not like that yet. Where I still do go home because California's so big, you can get away from those parts. You know what I'm saying? But it's come to a point where like if you don't come home, it's he changed up. Oh, he weird now, or he this, his that. Well, I feel like as a culture, that's a problem that we have internally. Absolutely. That we like bag on those, or we start roasting those, or like doing uncalled for stuff, gossiping basically about you know what I'm saying, not coming home. And now you feel peer pressure to go and you know what I'm saying,
show that you're still real.
It's an interesting perspective, and I think some people are going to push back on Stroud's side of it, but I have empathy for Stroud or anyone that wants to be one of the guys again. Again, they're making millions of dollars. They're a star. They got a lot of people that are basically kissing the ground that they walk upon, both Stroud and Dell. But that does have to be difficult, where all of a sudden, like, the friends that you grew up with, you're leaving them behind, and you want to come back in, but you know that they might not exactly bring you to the best environments. It's a valuable learning experience for Dell. And again, Stroud did talk probably more than he should have about this incident, but maybe Dell wasn't comfortable doing it. And we'll actually hear a little bit more from Tank Dell on the other side, his perspective on what happened, because he was asked a couple of interesting questions at the press conference that he had earlier in the week. I will say, going forward, I think that these guys are going to make sure that they know where they're going. Junior Broncos comments on the Twitch. Maybe don't go to any club that has to use metal detectors. I mean, you can say that, but there's lots of places that have that, And I think this is the weird thing about all of this, and I feel like there's been a heavy implication here of like Dell should have known what he was getting into. Now, again, if there's metal detectors outside, you would assume that the metal detectors are going to keep the guns from getting in. And I think to go to any place in our country with the thought in the back of your mind that someone's going to bring a gun and open up, I mean, if you feel like that, hey, I guess you'll be safer, but you're never going to leave your house.
Yeah, like we're doing a radio show from Houston, Texas.
Exactly.
Like, if we were doing that, like, yeah, we couldn't go get Chipotle. Like, we couldn't go around the corner because, you never know. You're right. We never know. And you know what? You know what Chipotle doesn't have?
What?
Metal detectors.
Yeah.
So I know even less if anyone's going to do anything.
Exactly. So, I mean, to go back a couple of weeks when Tank Dell got that question from, check that, not Tank Dell, when the McNairs had that question asked by Fox 26's Will Kunkel, who I like. But I thought the question was like, oh, well, you have to like tap him on the head and say like, oh, you should know better than this. Well, no, you kind of have to go through, I would imagine, experiences like this to going forward, think to yourself like, hey, I got to watch it. Because it's never going to be real to you, I would imagine, unless you go through something crazy like that,
Live with it. I'm blessed. God blessed me to get out of that situation healthy. I was only down for like a week without just like working out. But after that, I got right back to work and I'm feeling good. So
that's Tank Dell, Texans wide receiver, talking about getting shot a couple of weeks ago. He's back out at Texans minicamp, looking pretty good from what I understand. He was also on that $1 million worth of game podcast with C.J. Stroud, Gilly the King, Wallow 267, and he didn't really talk as much about it as really you heard from him at his press conference a couple of days ago on that podcast. Honestly, it felt like C.J. Stroud sort of took the reins from him and had more to say on it. And I think Stroud was trying to make it more of like a big picture conversation about like, hey, how can we as successful young men avoid situations like this going forward? And maybe they need a little bit of help from their friends growing up who should know better than to say like, hey, how about you come to the equivalent of Roadhouse, whether it's starring Houston's own, the late Patrick Swayze, or Jake Gyllenhaal. It is a bit of a crime that they remade the movie considering Patrick Swayze has left this world, but I do got to admit that movie was a lot better than I expected it to be. I know a lot of 80s enthusiasts, including one of my best friends, Jordy, would fight me over that, but don't care. I know what I'm talking about.
I think phrasing it as it was better than it had any business being. I think that's the correct where you're watching it expecting a disaster and you're like, oh, not bad. Not a bad way to spend a Sunday.
Tank said his family is thinking about moving out of Daytona after this incident and all the way to Houston. I mean, I would just recommend that as a whole because no offense to Daytona or any of the area that is northeast of Orlando. As someone who lived there, I mean, Orlando sucks. Imagine you're living in a suburb of Orlando. I mean, come on.
All right, that was big St. Pete talking right there.
Yeah, because St. Pete rules, dog.
Yeah, how about that, Tank Dell? If you want to stay in Florida, move to St. Pete.
Move to St. Pete. St. Pete's bougie AF now.
Get your mom season tickets for the Rays. Come on.
Yeah, at the Trop, they're affordable. They're very affordable. Lots of supply.
Tickets still available.
Dell was asked a couple of interesting questions at his press conference earlier in the week. Dell's answers aren't as much what I'm focusing on here as I am the questions. Here he is being asked about gun violence based off of the voice, I believe this is Christy Reekin of the Associated Press.
That gun violence is a problem across America, and a lot of people deal with it. But when you had to deal with it firsthand, how scary was that, and how much do you feel for other people that have had to deal with this?
Yeah, it's definitely scary, not only for myself but for my family, because I don't want to put myself in that type of position, and especially like my family. Like I got a little brother, my mom. I know how they was feeling at that time, and it's just a blessing that I'm safe. But it's a traumatic experience.
No doubt about it. I think it's kind of BS, and I like Christy a lot. And look, she's got a job to do, and hey, it's a story about a guy getting shot. So I get it. I just hate that you know someone goes through an incident like this, and you're like, hey, what are your thoughts on gun violence as a whole? I mean, that's a pretty layered conversation, no? And I don't know. I'll be honest. Even if somebody has been through it and has actually been shot, like obviously, yeah, you're going to be like, geez, it's a lot more of a problem than I thought it was. Much like my experience when I was in the autonomous zone and the Starbucks underneath my apartment got broken into. Yeah, it became a little bit of a problem in your own backyard. But is that going to make you have like real nuanced and things to offer about like how to stop
like big
shootings? Yeah. Like, let's be honest. No, no one has the answers here. It happens far too much, but it's, I think, due to irresponsible gun owners.
Yeah. Like the second part of the question I felt was fine. Of just like talking, like, because that's what Tank Dell is more of an expert in, is talking about Tank Dell's experience getting shot.
Yeah.
That less so of the like gun violence in America, which yes, everyone knows is a problem. Tank Dell knew it was a problem before he got on the plane back to Florida. He knew it was a problem.
It is something you don't expect to happen to you, but when it does, okay, it's going to be a little bit different. So I thought, considering I know that like everyone's got a job to do and you got a story to tell, hey, okay, if that is a different angle here that maybe he can offer a little bit more on. But this was not the only time that Tank Dell was asked about this, because a little bit later he was asked if this is something that would lead to him perhaps trying to prevent it from happening?
Two things. Going forward, do you plan on doing anything to help other people that might help them avoid a situation you were in, or is it just something you're going to talk about?
Yeah, me and my agent been having talks about it. So yeah, I'm definitely going to do something. We can kind of come up with something. Now I'm not sure what we like got in plan yet, but we're going to do something soon.
Okay, Tank, are you going to stop gun violence?
Yeah, are you gonna put on the cape and cowl and go to Daytona and clean up the streets of Daytona Beach like you're the Batman?
Yeah. I'm vengeance. I mean, the smallest Batman ever, by the way. Too. Look, he's a small guy.
Christian Bale's not that big.
He's not 5'8", is he?
I don't know.
He is an actor.
Actor size is different.
He is an actor, but. Before you look up the height, Sean, I want you to play the first question again, because I don't know who asked this one. I probably should have asked who did. But the second part of this question is, once again, for lack of a better term, a little dickish. Anyway, let's play that question again.
Two things. Going forward, do you plan on doing anything to help other people that might help them avoid a situation you were in, or is it just something you're going to talk about?
Yeah.
That part. It's just something you're going to talk about? What the hell is that? I can't be the only person that was in that room that thought like, oh, are you just going to talk about it? He got shot. He's not supposed to stop gun violence in America. What are we doing?
Yeah, it's also like if he wants to start like I don't know, some sort of philanthropic thing, or something where he pays the bills for other people victims of gun violence. Okay, sure. That takes a little bit more time than like a couple weeks.
And a little bit more money. He's a third-round pick going into his second year in the NFL. Not to say he's broke by any means, but that question, it's a finger wag at Tank Dell. And I wonder if this is the same person who asked the questions of the McNairs about, is this a learning experience for him? It's a judgmental question. And I mean, look, maybe he should have known that he shouldn't hang out with this group. But from all we know, this group that he hangs out with weren't the people that were doing the shooting. We don't know anything about it, you know? Yeah. What we do know is that he was just in the literal worst possible place while guns started shooting at one another, held by people who are children. Literally, these are under 8. One of them was under 18, high school-age kids. He's in the middle of it. And thank God they were terrible shots. Truly. Thank God. But what, he's supposed to stop gun violence now? He's supposed to go out of his way to stop gun violence now? He's supposed to raise awareness like, you might get shot. Like, what else is he supposed to say?
Yeah, it's a tough one to. And I thought Dell handled it perfectly. Hey, my agent and I are talking about things. I'm sure they are. There's something that they can do, at least, even if we're not talking about solving gun violence in America, which I love Tank Dell. I don't know if he's going to get to that point, but if there's something even he could do locally, either Houston or in Daytona, to, you know, raise awareness, try to, you know, get people on the streets talking about it, because at the end of the day, like, you don't have to tackle the problem as a whole, but you mentioned a pretty big part of it. Like, the gunman in this situation was a child.
Yeah.
So, like, there's obviously, like, work to be done in that community that isn't directly...
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be directly dealing with gun violence, because that is a bigger issue, but there is something that can be done to, like, hey, why are the children in this area toting guns and shooting up nightclubs?
Exactly. And he's being asked why he's talking about it. He's being asked about it.
Yeah.
He's talking about it because he got shot. He got shot.
He's a victim.
He's not going out here saying, like, we got to do something about the guns. No, he's like, yeah, I got shot. It 3 weeks ago.
Guess what? It sucked. It was scary.
Yeah. A couple of texts here. Someone texted me on the Gallant phone.
Whoa, personal.
Crabs in a bucket syndrome is real. People in your own community will tear you down because you level up, because they don't want to see you doing better than them. What happened to Tank and what Stroud was talking about, and we played that in the segment before this, is having OGs protecting youngins who have an opportunity to make something of themselves so the streets don't swallow them up. And I mean, this is why I would imagine a lot of guys just don't go back at all. Even if they are peer pressured to come back or ashamed to come back.
Yeah, and Stroud kind of hit the nail on the head with you want to. The best way to stay out of that situation is to never go back home. But then if you never go back home, then you're the guy who never went back home. Yeah. You know, that got a little bit of money and then left everyone in the dust. So there is like a tug of war that's happening right there, where like they're, you know, maybe we all just need to be a little bit more understanding of these guys that are like, hey, we cannot do the same things we did when we're knucklehead 15-year-olds. I am an NFL player now.
Yeah. And it would be nice if people understood that. But again, you know, this is not a story that's going to get out like to the big public. And also, it's, even if they are right, it is going to come across as like a little ivory tower-esque.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine some people hear this and are like, oh, F you, CJ, for saying that. But, I mean, what he's saying, to a degree, it's true. From the 832, Tank Dell should have thrown his batarang to disarm the gunman.
I do like the idea of, hey, are you going to do something about this, Tank Dell?
What is he supposed to do?
Yeah, like
what?
I mean, it is. It is a superhero origin story.
Truly. He was shot at a club. The former wide receiver became the stopper of bullets. Tank Dell is the shield. I don't know.
How a tank becomes a shield.
Tank Dell.
Tank Dell is a superhero.
I forgot he does
name.
he does have the name Tank. Like, should Tank Dell start going to the club in a Sherman tank like he's Tony Busby? It is D-Day today. Happy anniversary.
Yeah, wouldn't have done it without.
You know, it's been 80 years to the day. Should Tank Dell go to the club in an APC? 713-780-3776. A T1 A Panzer? That's a little problematic. 713-780-3776.
Also, to clean up a little bit, Christian Bale, 6 foot tall.
6 feet tall.
I'm throwing a little bit of a challenge flag on that.
He's taller than Tank Dell.
Yeah, just also being 6'0", I have some questions.
You have some questions.
Maybe he's 5'10".